Rumors about secrets in video games are a staple, and fighting games have had their fair share of alleged characters that ended up being completely fabricated in the end. Sometimes it's an intentional April Fool's joke, other times it's the result of getting misinformation, and then there's also that one guy who just wants to be a jerk and lies because he can. I'm going to take a look at some of the most prolific and my personal favorite made-up fighting game characters that we thought would be playable. Now to specify, these characters can exist in the game's lore or even be rumored guests from other games for a specific fighting game, they just can't be playable in the specific game they were said to be in. And if they were eventually made playable in a later entry in the series, they're still eligible for this list. In fact, that may get them extra imaginary points since that could mean the rumor had influence on the franchise. My final requirement is these fake characters have to have been reported in some sort of publication or advertisement, whether or not it was meant to be a joke or legitimate. No pure word on the street characters, though it won't stop Mortal Kombat from dominating this list. So let's see who got fooled with these top 10 fake fighting game characters. Number 10, Marcus Phoenix in Mortal Kombat 9. This one involves a rumored guest character. When Mortal Kombat 9 trailers were coming out, it was eventually revealed that the PlayStation 3 version would be getting God of War Kratos as a playable guest. Everyone was speculating who would be the guest on the Xbox 360 version of the game since it seemed inevitable. Soul Calibur did console exclusives this way, so why not Mortal Kombat? The most popular speculation was Marcus Phoenix from the Gears of War series. It was bloody violent and exclusive to the Xbox, so the main character Marcus felt like the best parallel to Kratos. The more we heard about Mortal Kombat 9 Kratos before the game came out, nothing for an Xbox exclusive followed, until Game Reactor announced Marcus Phoenix would finally be joining the combat on April 1st, 2011. Yeah, it was a pretty obvious gag considering we were well into the internet age, but they included some edited screenshots of Phoenix kicking and about to attack in-game, so it was enough to get you for a second until you realized it was April Fool's Day. Not to mention these screenshots without Phoenix were already released months prior to promote the game. At the very least, it was a fun little trick that made me think it might have been cool to have a heavy artillery FPS character in Mortal Kombat. Who knows, he may have outshined Stryker. Alas, Xbox never got that extra character, so it leaves Kratos as the only Mortal Kombat guest that was console exclusive. I guess that's something.
Kratos wins.
Oh god, it sounds like those red EXP orbs are hurting him. I'm sorry, buddy.
Kratos wins.
Number 9, Imitation Ryu, Ken, and Chun-Li in Virtua Fighter 5. I always think of Virtua Fighter as the no-nonsense fighting game. Characters may have funny quips before or after a fight, but the fighting is grounded and the characters are serious and realistic, minus the final boss. They generally save the silliness for spin-off games and guest appearances in other games, and apparently for April Fool's Day. In a Japanese commercial for April Fool's Day 2010, Sega had a bear announcer talk about the upcoming Virtua Fighter 5 Final Showdown. Let's just say they made some adjustments for this new iteration. Something was off about these Virtua Fighter characters. Akira was playing like Ryu, Jun was playing like Ken, and Pai-chan was playing like Chun-Li. They had high jumps and combos that you would see in Street Fighter, with super moves to boot, all decked out with key-based attacks. To obscure that we were looking at versions of the characters that we were not supposed to see, this ad was done with a low-quality visual filter and bleeps when the announcer uses terms like Shoryuken. It was a very nice tongue-in-cheek joke to poke fun at how they were not so subtly ripping off Street Fighter. I know these three are still technically existing Virtua Fighter characters, but since they've been altered enough, they felt like new characters to me.
VA5 Final Showdown 制作会長本物はこれでも時間がないのでまた今度ね
Number 8, Nimbus, Terrafo, and Mortal Kombat. New characters that turned out to be fake became an unintended staple of Mortal Kombat. It was certainly helped by co-creator Ed Boon, who pulled many fast ones over the years to imply new or fan-favorite characters could appear secretly or not so secretly in-game. The gags have ranged from putting a purple ninja that was a play on a Prince song in the intro of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 who wasn't actually in the game, later added to the Sega Genesis port, to putting up a picture of Shaggy fighting Scorpion in Mortal Kombat 11 on Ed Boon's Twitter, never put in the game. One of the earliest hoax Mortal Kombat characters was Nimbus Terrafo. He was a kickboxer who could be found in the first game in a manner similar to Reptile, the secret character that required a bunch of specific criteria to be met in order to fight him. All this information was revealed in the magazine Electronic Gaming Monthly in their April Fool's edition. You see where this is going. His last name had Fo in it, so the joke was right in front of you. All we knew about his playstyle, besides the kickboxing, is he'd have a cartwheel fatality, so I'm not sure what new moves he would have brought to the table considering we already have a guy that does that.
Liu Kang wins. Fatality.
Due to Nimbus being one of the first rumored characters not seen anywhere in-game, he tends to make wish lists on occasion for future entries, mainly because of these faked photos. I'd probably say he's on the popularity level of Hornbuckle. It's nice to see this prank is still remembered, but I don't think he'll get the Scarlet or Tremor treatment anytime soon. Number 7. Umbrella in Skullgirls. When the console version of Skullgirls was actively updating, the devs loved April Fool's Day. For April Fool's 2012, they said they were releasing a special version of Skullgirls called Skullgals for the defunct Pocket Neo Geo. This was a clear parody of SNK Gals Fighters, which had chibi versions of all your favorite SNK fighting game ladies. Anyway, for Skullgals, besides playing as all the greatest Skullgirls characters in crisp 40x40 pixel sprites, 2 never-before playable characters from the lore were available, Squiggly and Umbrella. At the time, both these actual planned DLC characters were put on hold, so the concept that we would finally get a chance to play them on an inferior version of the game is a pretty funny gag. I also love that they went to the lengths of putting the fake game on an actual Neo Geo Pocket for some of the screenshots. Squiggly was eventually made playable for the real game, so I'll have Umbrella be the true rep for this entry. Umbrella's listed playstyle even mirrors how she would have played if she was created, saying her Umbrella would grow hungrier and become even more powerful the longer it isn't used. It's funny how Umbrella, for the entire life of Skullgirls DLC releases, has only been shown playable on a gag reveal when she was initially going to be the second DLC released. That adds even more sodium to her already high levels of salt. Though Skullgirls did top this gag in the 2 consecutive years. For 2013 April Fool's Day, one of Skullgirls animators, Zone, had fake in-progress screenshots and sound clips of their own character Zone Tan and a tentacle monster being made for upcoming DLC. If that were real, it would likely be problematic for the game's T rating since this character represents, well, animated videos for a mature audience that,
MrTopTenList, I think that's called hentai.
Oh, right. Thank you, not-so-mysterious voice.
You're welcome. I'm here to inform and educate, as well as entertain.
And then, of course, was their most famous prank in 2014, revealing a new, super cool, totally unique character named Fukua. The joke here was instead she was just a palette swap clone of one of the main fighters' Filia, with some retooled, recycled moves, being a parody of how Street Fighter's Decapre was created. I discussed her on my evil counterparts in fighting games list, but to summarize why she could not be the entry here, she was released the day of her gag trailer, so she never had a period where she was a fake character. She was depicted as a parody from the start, but regardless, I love her for that.
Guess we won.
Number 6. Pedro in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Electronic Gaming Monthly has generally been the source of fake characters on the Mortal Kombat side, but this one comes from the UK-based computer and video games magazine known as CVG. In the mid-90s, when Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 was hitting the arcades, the only way of getting an updated version of Mortal Kombat 3 for your home console was to get a completely new disc or cartridge. However, CVG had a solution for PlayStation users. They published an article with a convoluted way to upgrade the vanilla version of the game to Ultimate, picking certain characters and doing certain criteria that obviously wouldn't work. Though the magazine said this trick's existence was unconfirmed, covering themselves when this entire thing turned out to be false. In their scenario, when this was successful, you would get 4 additional characters on the select screen that were not in the arcade version. Noob, Rain, and Classic Smoke were the 3 real characters you could get with this method, but the 4th one was a new guy named Pedro. This guy is just an edited Striker model, but even the magazine acknowledged it, as if they were criticizing Midway, saying, "Hey, it wasn't our idea." While it's easy for me to say how fake this looks as an adult, if I saw this when I was younger, I may have believed it. With how many palette swap ninjas we got, in 1995, this rumor probably would have gotten more legs if it didn't have to follow up the myriad of other fake Mortal Kombat characters. The article went into detail about the special moves Pedro would have, saying he lacks the weapons of Striker and instead would have fire kicks and fire farts. For the latter, your mind probably goes to Borracho, but the image makes me think they would actually work more like Peter Griffin's flatuation fireballs and all those Mugen mods, or is it pronounced Mugen? I'll give CVG credit that they didn't just make up another palette swap ninja like every other hoax Mortal Kombat fighter, but I've never really been a fan of gross out characters, so I won't be heartbroken if Pedro only stays an obscure edit of Striker. Number 5. Harada in Tekken 7. On April 1st, 2019, Tekken creator Katsuhiro Harada announced that he would be joining the fight in Tekken 7. The believability and overall reaction to this is what you'd expect for a fake character reveal on April Fool's Day in 2019, well into the internet age. Instead of people saying, "Really?" the reaction was more like, "Please make this happen." No one was fooled, but Harada is such a popular creator, people would have been happy to play him with some meta humor attacks. I'm not even sure how he would fight, maybe some counter attacks to represent that you're not supposed to ask him for expletives censored. An in-game model for him was created for the Negan reveal trailer, so the assets were there, and he was technically playable in one fighting game previously, so you can't say it's impossible to imagine. In Soul Calibur 5, he was a secret opponent in the quick battle mode, but he just had Devil Jin's moveset, which was accessible in the create a character mode, so he was never truly his own unique character. That means now is the time, right? Alright, fine. I'm sure no one is devastated that Playable Harada will just exist as a couple of images on social media, but it's a fun what if to have on the table. Number 4. Aqua in Mortal Kombat Trilogy. The UK seemed to be a good place where fake Mortal Kombat characters were fabricated, since a different UK source reported this one, being the official UK PlayStation magazine. Apparently though, not all its contacts were official, since their review of Mortal Kombat Trilogy had a big error. Among this seemingly normal review was the name drop of a new ninja added to Trilogy, and it wasn't Chameleon. It was a ninja dressed in black with a yellow mask using the Scorpion model named Aqua. Even crazier is the yellow mask wasn't a mask at all, but rather a duck bill. Now this sounds silly and improbable, but there are elements that put this in a gray area of believability. The main piece of evidence that shows he could have been a planned character is an alleged clip of Shao Kahn saying,
Aqua wins.
found in files of certain versions of the game. And if it counts for anything, the Mortal Kombat cartoon had one episode with Asgarth, a bird head guy, so avian characters do exist somewhere in the lore. There was also apparently another screenshot showing him using an echoing quack move with the Sindel scream effect, but it's not worth going into since the original article turned out to be fake. Sometime afterwards, a forum related to the Cutting Room Floor wiki found an original scan of the article and showed that the screenshot with Aqua was indeed doctored. In the real article, different gameplay screenshots were shown and there was no mention of Aqua, making the real mystery who would go to such a length to do this. I wonder if they're also the one who made that sound clip. So in the end, the only inaccurate thing in this article was referring to Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter as beat-em-ups. Number 3. Sonic and Super Smash Bros. Melee. Saying Sonic is going to be in Smash Bros. In the early 2000s is great for getting easy attention. In a prank article from 2002, Electronic Gaming Monthly told us the most popular Nintendo rival would be joining the biggest Nintendo crossover. This was right when the Sega Dreamcast was on its way out the door and Sega titles were starting to make their ways onto other consoles. This meant Sonic was not only a highly desired character for Smash Bros, but he was definitely not an impossible choice for the series. Because of that, it made the article seem more believable. It said all you had to do was get a high score with 20 KOs in the Cruel Melee mode, and considering how many secret unlockables there were in the game, these criteria seemed rather reasonable. Of course, this was fake, but it was bound to trick people back in the day with these doctored images backing it up. I actually like their idea of having Tails playable with Sonic. It seems like it could be a fun mechanic. They did not go into how he would work, but I imagine it would be like how Luma helps out Rosalina. And then there was a turn of luck for Sonic, as we saw him in Brawl and Beyond without Tails, along with enough Sonic Mario crossovers to show how far we've come with the rivalry. Number 2, Ermac in Mortal Kombat. Back in the original Mortal Kombat, there was a game audit screen that kept track of when certain events took place, like wins against Shang Tsung or reptile encounters. At the bottom of this list was the abbreviation Ermax, which was short for macro errors. I'm no programming expert, but the gist of it was the error macro number tracked how many unintended glitches appeared. Nothing special for the players, but someone somehow got a glimpse of this screen and possibly assumed that it referred to another secret in the game. The first publicized instance of Ermac was in Electronic Gaming Monthly, when a player created a rumor that you could face off against Ermac with specific steps that were all convoluted like the steps for the actual secret character fight against Reptile. It said Ermac was a red palette swap ninja, and the article was accompanied with a doctored photo, with the person claiming they only had a Polaroid camera to document this. The rumor evolved where these people mistook Ermac to be a technical glitch that caused Scorpion's outfit to turn red and the name on his health bar to read Ermac, since this is an alleged macro error. But in the end, no one could definitively replicate this, making Ermac a rumor entirely. As we know, the developers like to poke fun at those rumors and included hints of Ermac being a thing in Mortal Kombat 2 by having one of the messages on the windscreen against Shao Kahn being jumbled letters that would spell out Ermac does not exist. And randomly before the matches, the real secret characters, Jade and Smoke, would appear with messages on how to find them, but there was also one troll message that said, Ermac who? This just perpetuated the Ermac rumors with a clear name drop, but without the ease of searching the internet, people just had to button mash in hopes of unlocking the secret. Though there was no Ermac, and it really helped make these legitimate messages seem as fake as the rumors, since they were super rare, being among a handful of other possible messages. After being a fake character that teased the fanbase for years, he was a rare case of a rumor becoming real, solely from all the chatter about him. He finally appeared playable in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. They even honored the rumor by making him a secret unlockable character that could be found by putting in a code after a versus match. He was a red palette swap ninja just as promised and had a Scorpion clone aspect to him with a teleport punch. But he was still unique, being a telekinetic composed of 1,000 souls. Everyone loves the Force Lift, and with that backstory, I always believed the many souls that he was made of was meant to be a parallel to the many Ermacs that were tracked in the first game. Even if the color change glitch was an unproven rumor, NetherRealm acknowledged it again in Mortal Kombat 9 when they had throwback costumes from the first game for the original ninjas.
We are many. You want one, but
Real or not, it helped spread this old rumor in modern day. The man's come pretty far from just being a word on a screen that no one was supposed to see.
Ermac wins. Fatality.
Number 1 is among the most famous rumors in gaming history, and this list would not be complete without it. Shenlong in Street Fighter 2. It all started with Ryu's original windscreen in Street Fighter 2, which was supposed to say you must defeat my Shoryuken to stand a chance, but Shoryuken was mistranslated to Shenlong and the rumors went flying. The main consensus was that this name was referencing Ryu's master, which made sense. Maybe Ryu just surpassed his master, so now his master is the number 2 guy that you have to defeat before you can even stand a chance against number 1 Ryu. When the game was released on home consoles, the error was fixed to say Dragon Punch, the translation of Shoryuken, but the manual still said Ryu trained under Shenlong, assuming the arcade rumor to be true. The Malibu comic series, which was its own thing, also used Shenlong as Ryu's master, but the rumor blew up when Electronic Gaming Monthly published an April Fool's joke about how to encounter Shenlong in Street Fighter 2. To find him, it has your standard incredulous but not impossible requirements, being play as Ryu, win every match without getting hit up to Bison, and then go 10 rounds in the Bison fight without either one of you getting hit. Succeed and Shenlong will throw Bison off screen and fight you with his flaming Shoryuken and moves that have no recovery frames. There were indicators that this was a prank, like the names that submitted this tip to the magazine being puns on wasted tokens and fooled you again. Ha! However, people circulated this gag and the legend of Shenlong was born. Capcom got word of this rumor and really seemed to like it, as they added elements of it in later versions of Street Fighter 2. Ken got a flame on his Shoryuken like Shenlong, and Akuma's appearance as a secret boss in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo was like how Shenlong would be introduced by killing Bison. By the end of the Street Fighter 2 era, the lore established that Ryu's master was a man named Goken, who was Akuma's brother. At this point, Goken was sort of fused with Shenlong. It's like Mike and Balrog. They're technically the same character based on backstory and intended moveset, but the lore acknowledges them as separate characters. After Goken's legitimate introduction into Street Fighter lore, Shenlong went dormant until Street Fighter 3. Well, actually, he was supposed to appear in Street Fighter the movie The Game, but there's a whole other story behind the production of that, which is too long to go into right now. For Street Fighter 3, A New Generation, Electronic Gaming Monthly was at it again with the pranks, but this article was almost like a wink at the audience, like, you guys know what we're doing. Though they still tried to make some convincing claims, like explaining the reason he's known as Goken sometimes is because Shenlong is his localized American name, like how Goki's localized American name is Akuma. And then you had some extra lore, like saying he got his scar when Akuma tried to kill him, and showing his one-handed Hadokens to go with his mastery of Hado energy. It was a fun callback, and people still believed it, so he was still that fake character that made his way around the word on the street. But finally, after all those years of being a rumor, Shenlong/Goken broke out of his legacy of being a non-playable character and made the roster of Street Fighter 4. They combined his established canon lore with all the Shenlong rumors. He had the scar, long gray hair, beard, one-handed Hadokens with two fired when enhanced, and the super moves from the Street Fighter 3 article. Plus, he was a secret boss to match him up with his rumored origins. The qualifications, though, were much more reasonable, with only one perfect needed, along with a certain amount of rounds being finished by a super move. And to cap it off, one of his win quotes was, "You must defeat me to stand a chance." With the legacy of how this rumor got passed around, along with the character finally becoming a real boy, Shenlong/Goken/mistranslated Shoryuken is the #1 fake, at least initially, character in fighting games. Now, what did you think? Who were some of your favorite rumors or gags that I discussed, and which of your favorite fake fighting game characters were as non-existent on this list as they are in the games they were supposed to be in? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.